Thank you. I want to extend a very warm welcome to all the listeners to this session on innovations with a purpose. It is very befitting that this is happening as part of the October Summit, honoring Dr. G. Venkataswamy and his pioneering work in eye care. In many ways, he really was a masterclass innovator. I dedicate this presentation to him. Overall, innovations fall into two categories. There is one bucket of innovations which, after development, look for applications and problems to solve. The other category of innovations stem out of unrelenting pursuit of purpose, finding ways to mitigate drift from the organization's value framework, and ongoing challenges in the care delivery process, especially when it comes to closing the care loop. The later category of innovations are sometimes brushed aside as improvements. However, these innovations are just as important as they often tend to be impactful. My presentation will be about these purposes or problem-driven innovations that have shaped Aravind over the past 4.5 decades. At the core, one set of innovations are most needed to address fundamental challenges of access, affordability, comprehensive care, and closing the care loop. This is in the context of the ever-changing ecosystem within which we operate, largely leveraging existing technologies and solutions. Having said this, innovations are equally needed to develop new technologies that lead to new solutions and redefine the ecosystem. I'll run through some examples. In the interest of time, I'll limit these examples to 6. I'm taking one of the issues in eye care, refractive errors, which is a billion people problem. As per the recent World Report on Vision by World Health Organization, an estimated billion people would see better with a simple pair of prescription glasses. They live largely in developing economies. With a simple intervention, a significant proportion of them would be able to transition out of visual impairment and some out of blindness. Yet, only 1 in 6 in need has a pair of glasses. A billion people requiring refractive error correction also implies that they are everywhere. However, facilities that provide even this simple solution are limited to large cities. This urgently requires innovation in technology and process. To ensure that each person amongst the billion in need is served, he or she first has to be identified. Then the extent of refractive error has to be assessed. Then there needs to be the availability of frame of the person's liking and the lens of the correct power. Finally, they have to be assembled, checked, and given to the person. Innovations that can be scaled are required for each stage of this linear process. The following are a couple of examples of how Aravind and others are addressing this. In the early days, we just gave prescription in eye camps, and very few of them actually got the pair of glasses. We then realized that with no optical shop in the vicinity, they would need to make 2 or 3 trips to a town that had an optical shop. This requires a lot of effort and money to get a pair of prescription glasses. To address this, we decided to figure out a way of dispensing glasses right at the campsite within 30 minutes while the patient is still there. We did this by predicting the number of lenses required in various powers, taking a wide selection of frames, and a simple hand edging machine. With this process innovation, over 85% of those prescribed got the glasses right at the campsite. Addressing the refractive error requires a special skill. People with such skills, the optometrists or refractionists, are in acute short supply, and they are seldom willing to relocate to rural and remote areas where this skill is most needed. The idea that Aurolab along with Plenoptica of USA worked on was to look for a technology that can be a substitute for such human skills. The result was a handheld binocular type device that gives an accurate prescription in less than a minute. The only skill required is to guide the patient to look properly into the device, which could be done by anyone with minimal training. This device has been independently validated in several studies to be as accurate as a gold standard of subjective refraction by a skilled optometrist. Given the small form factor, this could be carried around if needed for active case finding in remote areas. Technologies like this have the potential to be scaled widely. The next challenge is one of supply chain, that is making the spectacles locally available. Many innovators such as Martin Afmuth of $1 glasses have come up with solutions for local fabrication of frames and fitting them with pre-cut lenses. U-Specs and Focus Spec have technologies that allow the user to adjust the power of the lens. These, again, hold possibilities to mitigate the challenges of supply chain. Reaching everyone in need or creating universal access has been a challenge. Recognizing this after 4 years of experimentation, telemedicine-enabled primary eye care centers were established in 2004. A patient walking into a vision center gets a comprehensive eye examination with IOP measurement and imaging as required. All these findings are entered into an EMR and presented live to an ophthalmologist in the base hospital. Following interaction with the patient, the doctor confirms the diagnosis. Following that, the doctor sends a prescription for glasses or medicines as appropriate. These are made available in the vision centers. This approach seems to be achieving universal coverage, with over 25% of the general population of close to 8 million over time getting an eye exam at the vision center. As the challenge in eye care transitions to managing chronic conditions like diabetic retinopathy and glaucoma, the dependency on subspecialists increases. Since they are very few in number, it limits the number getting care to those who can make it to such tertiary facilities. To address this, Aravind worked with Google to leverage their strength in image recognition to interpret fundus images and give instant report as a cloud service. This development now allows for routine monitoring of patients with diabetic retinopathy at vision centers or outreach, as long as imaging capabilities are there. Internet, which is another requirement, is already ubiquitous and will become increasingly so in the coming years. The final example is one of innovation addressing value drift. Equity in care is one of Aravind's guiding principles. This was challenged in late 1980s with the implant of IOLs or intraocular lenses becoming the standard of care in cataract surgeries. Due to the high price of IOLs then, which was $100 to $150, it was out of reach of most in India and other developing countries. And within Aravind, 2 levels of care were emerging. Better vision function for those who can afford to have the IOL implant, and relatively lesser functionality for the poor who got aphakic surgery. This led to the establishment of Aurolab, which quickly mitigated this value drift by producing and selling very affordable IOLs to most of the developing countries. Innovation requires a strong stimulus. Pursuing a purpose and warning the challenges or constraints offer ample opportunities to innovate. Thank you.